Did you know your brain now decides boring or interesting in about the time it takes to blink? Did you know that in the year 2000, our digital attention span hovered around 12 seconds, and today it's closer to 8? Did you know that's actually shorter than a goldfish? We didn't wake up one day and choose that. Our phones trained us. Every scroll, every swipe, every maybe later. Bit by bit, our mind got used to tiny hits of novelty instead of long stretches of focus. We don't look at things anymore, we skim past them. Now imagine one ordinary person opening YouTube. They're on the couch, or in the elevator, or half awake in bed. The app opens, the home feed loads, their thumb is already moving before the first thumbnail fully appears. Shorts flash by, suggested videos flicker on the screen, a notification sneaks in, a search bar waits at the top just in case, but most of the time they don't even use it. In that chaos, your video appears, your thumbnail shows up for maybe half a second, your title is technically visible, but their eyes are already sliding to the next thing. They don't compare your video to others like a careful judge. They don't appreciate your color grading, your font choice, or that clever pun you worked on for 15 minutes. Their brain is running a brutally simple script. Does this pull me? Yes or no? Not, is this good? Not, did they put effort into this? Just, do I feel something right now? That tiny instant between your video appearing and their thumb either stopping or continuing is where everything is decided. That is the impression to click gap. If they pause, you win a shot. If they don't, you don't just lose a view. You lose a chance, a trust, a fan, maybe a future customer. And here's the twist nobody talks about. Most creators think the game starts after the click. They pour their energy into the script, the editing, the hook at the start, when in reality, the real battle often ends before the video ever begins. It's like rehearsing a masterpiece stage performance in a theater where the audience is leaving during the opening announcements. So the real question becomes, how do you speak to someone who doesn't want to stop? How do you reach a mind that's already halfway gone? And what if the secret isn't getting people to click at all, but something stranger? Because a new kind of win is quietly appearing on platforms like YouTube and beyond, where the most powerful creators aren't chasing clicks the way everyone else is. They're playing a different game. In the next part, we'll step into that game. And you'll see why zero click might be worth more than the click you've been obsessing over. That moment between appearing on someone's screen and being ignored. That tiny blink where everything is won or lost. It carries a hidden measurement. YouTube watches that moment closer than anything else. It keeps score, quietly, ruthlessly, and it reduces your entire first impression to one number, CTR. Imagine standing in a busy train station holding a sign with your message. Hundreds walk by, most barely glance, a few stop, and even smaller few actually approach you. That's what your video faces every time it enters a home feed. Out of 100 people who pass your sign, only a handful pause long enough to care. 4, maybe 10 if things go well. Everyone else drifts past as if the video never existed. Here's the part that surprises creators the most. Changing that number even slightly doesn't just raise performance, it transforms it. Picture this. You've been getting 4 clicks out of every 100 impressions. You adjust something small, a clearer attention, a more specific promise, a thumbnail that hints at a story instead of showing the whole thing. Now you're at 8. It feels like a small jump until you realize the math. You didn't do a bit better. You doubled the number of people entering your world without filming anything new, without adding more editing hours, without touching a single second of your actual content. This is the quiet power of first impressions on YouTube. The part creators often overlook because it happens outside the video, before the hook, before the pacing, before the storytelling. And this is where a shift begins. When a click becomes that valuable, something else rises in importance, something that happens even earlier than CTR, something that starts forming before someone even touches your video, a new type of influence where the win isn't just when someone taps, but also when your message stays with them, even if they don't. That's the doorway to the next part, where zero click stops sounding like a clever idea and starts revealing why it might shape the future of discovery itself. The moment someone pauses on your video or rushes past it doesn't happen by accident. It's shaped long before they read a title, before they make a conscious decision, and definitely before they watch a single frame. That fragile impression to click gap, that unforgiving CTR score. Both point toward one thing that carries more weight than most creators realize: the thumbnail. It isn't decoration, it isn't an accessory. It's the billboard your video plants on the busiest, noisiest highway in the digital world. Think about that train station moment again, hundreds walking past, only a few stopping. Your thumbnail is the sign you're holding, the image that asks, is this worth your time right now, in the middle of everything else you're doing? And here's where human behavior becomes fascinating. Across countless creators, tests, and marketing teams, one pattern keeps surfacing. When a thumbnail shows a face, a feeling, or a tension the viewer instantly recognizes, it draws more eyes and more clicks. Not because people are logical, but because emotion is quicker than logic. A raised eyebrow, a moment of shock, a hint of conflict. These tell the brain a story before the brain realizes it's reading one. This is where zero click starts to take shape. A zero click thumbnail isn't made to be pretty. It isn't made to be clever. It's made to trigger a reaction so fast the viewer can't explain it. Here's what it quietly achieves in that split second. It signals a story. Something is happening or about to happen, and the viewer wants to know what. It creates tension, a problem, a puzzle, a moment suspended in midair, enough that the viewer feels a tug without knowing why. It conveys emotion, not a generic mood, but a specific feeling that sparks curiosity or concern. It promises relevance. The thumbnail answers, "Why should I care?" before the viewer consciously asks the question. And all of this happens at lightning speed, faster than reading, faster than processing text, faster than any conscious choice. Most thumbnails fail because they try to inform. Zero-click thumbnails succeed because they try to provoke. They don't shout, they suggest. They don't explain, they invite. They don't tell you the story, they hint at the moment right before the story unfolds. And the deeper truth behind CTR suddenly becomes clear. Your video doesn't rise when people click. It rises when people feel something that makes them pause. That's why this next part matters. Understanding the anatomy of a thumbnail is not a design lesson. It's a window into how the human mind reacts under pressure, distraction, and speed. Because once you can craft a visual that speaks to someone's instincts, you stop fighting for clicks and start shaping what the viewer notices even before they decide to watch. Now we can finally pull the curtain back and look at what makes a thumbnail truly compelling and why mastering this one skill can transform everything that follows. Once you see the thumbnail as the billboard on that crowded highway, something else becomes obvious. Billboards don't work because of the words. They work because of the human signal we're hardwired to notice before anything else. Remember that instant where the viewer either stops or keeps scrolling? That instinctive reaction YouTube measures as CTR? Faces are the fastest way to influence that moment. Our brains were built long before screens, long before text, long before algorithms. And throughout human history, survival depended on reading someone's expression in a fraction of a second. Are they scared? Are they angry? Are they excited? Are they safe? That wiring never changed. It simply migrated into the digital world. So when two thumbnails appear, one filled with cluttered text and random objects, the other showing a close up face with a clear, readable expression, the mind snaps to the face first, instinctively, automatically, before the viewer even realizes they've made a choice. And that single glance does three powerful things at once. It signals the emotional tone of the story: shock, relief, curiosity, frustration, triumph. Whatever the core feeling is, the viewer identifies it instantly. It creates empathy. There's a split-second moment of "that's me" or "I've felt that too," which builds connection before the video even starts. It guides attention. A glance, a pointed finger, the tilt of a chin, all of it can subtly pull the viewer's eye toward the title, the object in frame, or the central idea the thumbnail is teasing. This is why creators who treat thumbnails as an afterthought end up struggling with CTR, and why those who plan for emotion from the start often see dramatic jumps in performance. There's also a simple habit that separates the two groups. They don't wait until editing to grab a thumbnail. They intentionally record extra facial shots, different moods, different intensities, different expressions that match the emotional beats of the story, not to fake anything, but to amplify the real emotion in a way the viewer can interpret instantly. A few expressions are nearly universal. The "I can't believe this" moment, the "I finally cracked it" realization, the concerned or skeptical pause, the wave of relief or quiet satisfaction. These aren't staged reactions, they're the emotional highlights your video already contains, captured in a way that the viewer can understand in half a heartbeat. And once you start thinking this way, thumbnails stop being images you need to design and become moments you intentionally create. Now that emotion is on the table, the next step is understanding how objects, composition, and tension combine with these expressions to turn a simple image into a powerful story cue, one the viewer feels compelled to explore further. Once emotion enters the frame, the viewer's attention is finally anchored. But anchoring isn't enough, isn't it? A face tells them how the video feels, but text tells them why they should care. It connects directly to that impression to click gap you've been building toward. Because even if a face stops the scroll for a moment, the viewer still has one job left: figuring out the value fast. And this is where creators often stumble. Some put no text at all, hoping the title will do the heavy lifting. But titles take longer to read, and in a fast moving feed, longer often means too late. Others cram entire sentences onto the thumbnail, every word fighting for space, every phrase shrinking into unreadable clutter. The mind sees that and immediately checks out. Too much effort, too much decoding. The sweet spot lies in between. Clear, short, benefit driven text reduces the mental load. It helps the viewer understand the why instantly without slowing down or thinking too hard. In a feed where decisions happen in microseconds eases everything. That's why the most effective thumbnails keep to a simple rhythm, 2 to 5 words. Short enough to read in a glance, a clear benefit, not what the video is, but what the viewer gets. Different from the title explains. The thumbnail text sparks curiosity. Think of it like a tiny spark right beside the emotional cue from the face. Together, they form a 1-2 punch. What's happening emotionally? What's in it for me? Take a video about improving YouTube growth. Title: The zero-click strategy I use to double my CTR. Thumbnail text: They click before watching. The face conveys tension or surprise. The words deliver a promise that doesn't fit neatly into logic. So the viewer's brain does what it always does in that moment. It asks, "Wait, how is that possible?" Or, title: I fixed my thumbnails and tripled my views. Thumbnail text. This was the fix. The text doesn't repeat the title, it pushes the brain into curiosity mode. This is the micro yes you're aiming for, not a full commitment. Not yet. Just enough intrigue to pull the viewer into the next inch of the journey, the inch where they actually click. That's the essence of zero-click thinking. Give the viewer a reason to feel, a reason to care, and a reason to pause, all before they even consider watching. Once the emotional signal and the benefit become a unified cue, the thumbnail stops being a picture and becomes a promise. And now there's one more element that ties it all together. The moment, the object, the detail that adds tension to the scene and pushes curiosity past the tipping point. The moment you combine emotion with a clear promise, something interesting happens. The viewer finally notices you. But noticing isn't the same as stopping. To stop someone mid-scroll, your thumbnail has to interrupt the rhythm of the feed itself. This is where color and composition take over, not as decoration, but as the visual force that cuts through the noise. Everything before this point has shaped meaning. Now we shift into shaping visibility, because in a world where every swipe reveals 10 more videos, your thumbnail isn't battling for appreciation, it's battling for survival. And the feed favors whatever stands out the fastest. That's why certain visual patterns keep rising to the top across creators, advertisers, and design experts. High contrast. A light subject on a dark background or a dark subject on a bright one. Contrast acts like visual gravity. It pulls the eye instantly. Colors that don't melt into YouTube's interface. Muted beige, grayish tones, low contrast. These disappear into the platform's white and gray layout, but bold, clean colors jump off the screen even at tiny sizes. A deliberate layout, placing your face or main object on one side and your text on the other, taps into the rule of thirds, the simplest way to guide the viewer's eye without overwhelming them. Breathing room. Most creators cram in everything they can, but the thumbnails that hold attention give everything inside the frame space to speak. And here's the most revealing exercise. Shrink your thumbnail down to the size it actually appears on a phone. Smaller than you think, barely more than a stamp. Now ask, is the emotion still readable? Can I still make out the main word? Can I instantly tell what kind of video this is? If not, the thumbnail won't survive real-world scrolling speed, because zero-click thinking isn't about making things look pretty, it's about making them unmistakable. When emotion hooks the instinct, when text sparks curiosity, and when color and composition make the image stand out even at a glance, you create a thumbnail the feed can't ignore, and that sets the stage for something deeper, turning a single frozen frame into a moment of story. A moment loaded with tension that makes the viewer feel like they need to know what happens next. Now that the thumbnail has pulled them closer, the next thing they look at, the thing that tips the scale from maybe to yes, is your title. This is where the promise finally takes shape. Think of the title as the moment you actually speak. Up until now, everything has been visual. Emotion from the face, clarity from the text, contrast that stops the scroll. But the second they look at your title, you're no longer hinting. You're making a commitment. You're telling them, this is what you'll get. And here's the tension that makes it worth it. A strong title quietly does three things. It promises a clear benefit. It introduces just enough tension to spark curiosity, and it still uses the language your niche expects, so both people and the algorithm immediately understand what the video is about. Once you see it this way, you start noticing patterns, three core styles that creators use to pre-sell their content before anyone ever clicks. And the first style It's driven by pure intrigue. These intrigue based titles show up everywhere because people simply can't resist an open loop. Lines like, I stopped chasing views, this happened. This tiny change saved my channel. The thumbnail mistake you don't know you're making. Each one hides a missing piece. What happened? What change? What mistake? The mind naturally leans forward to fill in the gap. But intrigue without context can feel vague. If someone doesn't know your niche, they might scroll right past. That's why a tiny adjustment turns a curious title into a clickable one. I stopped chasing views on YouTube. This happened. The thumbnail mistake killing your YouTube CTR. Now the mystery stays intact, but the meaning becomes clear. The next style doesn't hint at anything. It leads with values so direct that people instantly understand what's in it for them. How I doubled my YouTube CTR in 30 days. Grow from 0 to 1,000 subscribers with one video per week. Write YouTube titles that get 10,000 plus views. These titles don't require thinking or guessing. They offer a result, a transformation, a specific outcome someone might want right now. And in zero-click thinking, making that benefit obvious isn't bragging. It's smart communication. Then there's another angle creators use, one that taps into something deeper, the sense that timing matters, not hype, not manipulation, real urgency. Fix these 3 thumbnail mistakes before your next upload. Don't post another video until you watch this. These titles work because they imply immediate impact, a consequence, a decision that matters today, not someday. But there's a rule here. If the title signals urgency, the content must genuinely help. False urgency feels like old school clickbait, and once trust breaks, people don't return easily. All these angles, intrigue, benefit, urgency, come alive through simple formulas creators use again and again because they work. The big result strategy I used to result. The zero-click strategy I used to double my CTR. Number topic mistakes killing your result. 5 thumbnail mistakes killing your YouTube views. How to desired result without common pain. How to grow on YouTube without uploading every day. I tried unusual approach so you don't have to. I let AI design my thumbnails for 30 days. These patterns create curiosity and clarity in the same breath. They define who the video is for and why it matters instantly. And when your title completes the emotional spark created by the thumbnail, everything finally clicks. The person hovering over your video moves from interest to action. They tap, they commit, they're ready for what comes next. And once the click happens, the final challenge begins, keeping them watching long enough for your story to actually land, the moment where the next part of your strategy takes over. Once the title has sealed the promise and the viewer finally clicks, most creators think the job is done. But there's a quiet part of your video that still shapes discovery, retention, and even search. And most people barely give it a second thought: the description. It sits underneath your video like a forgotten paragraph, yet it has 2 roles that quietly influence performance more than creators realize. YouTube isn't just a video platform, it's one of the biggest search engines on the planet. And the description is where you help the system understand exactly what your video is about, while also reassuring the viewer that they made the right choice clicking. Those first few lines, the tiny snippet visible above the show more fold, act like a mini pitch. A second chance to say, yes, this video is exactly what you came for. Zero-click thinking flows straight into this moment because the description continues what the thumbnail and title began. It's the place where clarity meets confidence. And when you look at descriptions through this lens, a simple structure begins to emerge. Start with the first 1 to 3 lines. The part people see without expanding anything. This is where you combine emotion, value, and direction in a single breath. Imagine something like you're losing views in the scroll, not in your content. In this video, I break down the zero click strategy that helped me double my YouTube CTR using smarter thumbnails, titles, and descriptions. Watch this before you publish your next video. Those lines do more than summarize. They reflect the viewer's pain, views slipping away before the video even begins. They offer a concrete benefit, doubling CTR. They mention specifics, thumbnails, titles, descriptions, so the viewer knows exactly what they'll learn. And there's a gentle nudge to keep watching without sounding pushy. If this video added something to your day, make sure you subscribe, like, and share it around. Plus, tap that bell icon so you're always up to date with what's coming next. Okay, coming back to the topic, it's the essence of a zero-click promise, written in a way that respects attention. Then comes the middle section, the part most people misunderstand. This isn't where you dump a pile of keywords. It's where you naturally explain what's inside the video using the words people actually search for. Something like, we look at real examples of strong and weak thumbnails, how emotion and facial cues stop the scroll, and simple title formulas you can use instantly. You'll also learn how to write viewer-friendly descriptions that help with YouTube SEO without sounding stuffed or spammy. This section does three things at once. It uses phrases like thumbnails, YouTube CTR, titles, YouTube SEO, which the algorithm recognizes. It gives the viewer a quick roadmap of what's coming. And it keeps a conversational tone, which people respond to far better than robotic keyword lists. Most creators skip this step, but those who don't often see clearer search placement and more watch time, because viewers know exactly what value they're about to get. Finally, the bottom of your description becomes a navigation tool, not just for people watching, but for YouTube itself. Here's where timestamps make the video easier to explore. Here's where you link to related videos, playlists, or deeper breakdowns. Here's where tools, resources, or a newsletter fit naturally without feeling forced. This does two things. It keeps people inside your world longer. And it signals to YouTube that your video is part of a bigger connected ecosystem. That connection matters. It helps the algorithm group your content, recommend it more often, and understand who should see it next. So the description, when done right, isn't background text. It's a quiet extension of your zero-click strategy, a supporting layer that reinforces clarity, relevance, and intent long after the thumbnail and title have done their part. And once those pieces are working together, thumbnail, title, description, there's still one final step: how you open the video itself, how you hold attention in the first 10 seconds, and how you guide people through a watch experience that keeps them from clicking away too soon. Once your description reinforces the promise and gives the viewer confidence they're in the right place, you reach a crucial turning point, understanding that none of this is accidental. Everything, thumbnail, title, description, is part of a deliberate system. A system you can rebuild video after video. That's where this strategy finally becomes powerful. Not as a theory, but as a workflow. Something repeatable, predictable, and reliable, something you do before you ever hit record. Because the biggest mistake most creators make is starting with the video. Zero-click thinking flips that upside down. You start with the decision you want the viewer to make before the video even exists. So here's where it begins. Before you touch the script, before you set up the lights, you ask two simple questions. Who exactly am I talking to? And what clear promise am I making to them? Not a vague idea like YouTube creators. Be specific. People under 5,000 subs, creators posting once a week, entrepreneurs who don't want to upload daily. And the promise must be equally sharp: double your CTR, grow your first 1,000 subs, edit faster without sacrificing quality. Once you have those two pieces, ideas start to pour out. You're not guessing anymore. You're shaping a message for a real person with a real goal. This is why brainstorming title and thumbnail pairs early is so effective. 15 to 20 ideas, no judgment, just options. You might land on something bold. The zero-click strategy I used to double my CTR paired with they click before watching. Or maybe something more confrontational. Your thumbnails aren't the problem. This is with why they don't click. Or something analytical. Fix your impressions. Fix your channel with CTR equals new views. Then you pick a handful of favorites and keep them visible while you script. Because if the entire video doesn't serve the promise in the title, you're setting yourself up for a disconnect before the viewer even starts watching. The next step is treating your thumbnail the way great marketers treat ads. You test them. Platforms now give you simple A/B testing tools. And if not, there are external tools that do the job. You build 2 to 3 versions for every upload. A different expression, a different text hook, a different color choice. You start with the one you think will win. But after a day or two, you open analytics and check the story your numbers are telling. Is the video getting impressions? Great. Is the CTR lower than your usual range? Time to test a variation. This is how creators quietly double or triple performance without shooting anything new. Not by guessing the perfect thumbnail, but by evolving toward it. And in different niches, the definition of strong CTR shifts. 5% might be great in one space, 20% normal in another. So the real benchmark isn't a global number. It's your baseline and the people you're trying to reach. Then you turn to analytics, not as a math assignment, but as a story. A story of decisions viewers made second by second. CTR tells you whether people chose you when they saw you. Retention tells you whether you fulfilled the promise you made. Traffic sources reveal which titles resonate in search, which ones thrive on the home feed, which ones hook people through suggested. If the CTR is low but people stay once they click, your content is solid, your packaging needs work. If the CTR is high but viewers drop fast, your packaging promises more than the video really delivers. Zero-click thinking demands alignment. The promise must match the payoff. And even after all that, the cycle doesn't stop. Every video becomes a living asset, something you come back to. Maybe you refresh the thumbnail on an older video that has great watch time but weak CTR. Maybe you rewrite a title to better match what your actual audience cares about now. Maybe you update the description because new keywords or phrases are trending. You're not simply publishing content into the void. You're running ongoing experiments to win that fragile moment of decision. And when you look at all of this together, thumbnail, title, description, testing, optimization, it becomes clear why some creators rise and others stall. Most creators obsess over editing, gear, and polish, yet they overlook the first 3 things a viewer ever sees. A thumbnail that either stops the scroll or blends into it. A title that either promises something meaningful or sounds like every other upload. A description that either clarifies or confuses. The zero-click strategy is about one simple shift. You win the decision before they click. Do that consistently and everything changes. CTR climbs, views grow, the algorithm gets clearer signals, your channel stops feeling random and starts feeling inevitable. So before your next upload, flip your workflow. Don't start with the script. Start with 10 to 20 title ideas, 2 thumbnail concepts, and a 3-line description hook. Then come back and tell me, I ran the zero-click workflow. Share your old CTR, your new CTR, and what changed after testing it on 3 videos. And if you want a follow up where I rebuild real viewer thumbnails and titles using this exact approach, comment, review my thumbnail, because at this point, you're not just making videos anymore. You're shaping the moment before the moment, the decision that decides everything. Again, if you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button, tap like, share it with someone who'd love this too. And don't forget to turn on the bell so you never miss a new upload. And that's it for today. This is Merlin signing off. See you in the next one.